She sat in that chair, silent but strong. Her eyes didn't flinch. Her hands didn't shake. But her heart. It was breaking. Blake Lively. A name the world knows. A face millions adore. But that day, she was not a star. Not a celebrity. Not a character on a screen. She was just a woman. Fighting for her voice. For her truth. For her privacy. Why would someone like her fight so hard to keep a deposition sealed? What was she protecting? What did the world not see? To understand that, you have to go back. Back to before the lights. Before the fame. Before the noise. Blake was born into a world that already had cameras. Her parents were in the industry. Her siblings too. Acting wasn't new. But that didn't make it easier. She didn't come into this world with a script. She came with questions. With fears. With hope. She wasn't loud. Wasn't looking for attention. She watched more than she spoke. Observed more than she acted. That quiet space inside her? It grew into empathy. In death. She didn't chase fame. It found her. When she stepped into her first real role, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, something shifted. People saw her. But more importantly, she saw herself. Could she really do this? Could she carry a story? Turns out, yes. But carrying a story on screen is one thing. Carrying your own story off screen, that's another. Gossip Girl made her a star. Overnight, her name was everywhere. Every step, every smile, every glance became public property. People believed they knew her. But they only knew the parts she let them see. Behind closed doors, she was learning how to hold herself together. She struggled with the pressure. The expectations. The way people talked about her like she wasn't real. Just another headline. Another outfit. Another love interest. But Blake was real. And she felt everything. She found peace in love. In Ryan. In a man who saw past the spotlight. Who saw her, even when she couldn't. They laughed. They built a home. They had children. Not for the cameras, but for each other. Still. Hollywood doesn't like boundaries. Doesn't like mystery. It wants it all, every detail. Every confession. Every scar. Then, a legal case. A lawsuit. The kind where questions get asked. Deep ones. Personal ones. Questions not meant for public ears. The court wanted her deposition to be public. But Blake said no. She fought. And the world asked. What's she hiding? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking. Why do we think we deserve to see someone's pain? Her deposition wasn't about drama. It wasn't a performance. It was raw. It was the truth. And truth can be painful. It held moments she hadn't spoken of. Feelings she hadn't shared. Not because she was afraid. But because she wanted to heal. Blake didn't fight for secrecy. She fought for dignity. In a world that profits off pain, she drew a line. She said no. This is mine. You don't get to have it. Do you know how hard that is? To say no. When the whole world is asking for yes. She faced nights of anxiety. Days of dread. What if the truth came out and it hurt people she loved? What if it reopened wounds she'd worked so hard to close? She didn't owe us her story. Not the ugly parts. Not the bleeding parts. Those were hers. She could have stayed silent. Let others speak for her. Let rumors grow. But instead, she stood up. Spoke clearly. Said, I choose peace. We talk about strength like it's loud. Like it looks like shouting or swinging or slamming doors. But sometimes, strength is still. Sometimes, it's quiet. Sometimes, it's one woman sitting in a cold chair, refusing to let the world see her cry. And yet, still rising. Blake's rise wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was steady. Built brick by brick. With love. With pain. With small, brave choices. She learned how to be soft and strong. Private and present. Famous, but human. She never tried to be perfect. Just real. And that's what makes her so powerful. Not the roles. Not the red carpets. But the moments no one sees. The quiet battles. The private tears. The hard no's. This wasn't just about one deposition. It was about every woman who's ever been asked to put her pain on display. Every person who's ever felt like they had to explain their wounds. Blake showed us a different way. You don't have to show everything to prove it's real. 6. You don't have to bleed in public to be brave. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is say nothing. And that's silence. That's power. So the next time you see her smile, remember what it cost. Remember what she held on to when the world asked her to let go. She chose to protect her peace. Her family. Her heart. And in doing that, she gave us something even more powerful than a story. She gave us an example. An example of grace. Of resilience. Of quiet rebellion. Because in a world that wants everything, she kept something for herself. And that is untold strength. Real, raw. Unshakable. Just like her. She taught us that not everything must be spoken to be true. Not every pain must be shared to be respected. And not every truth belongs in the spotlight. She reminded us that silence can speak volumes. That boundaries are not barriers, but shields. That privacy isn't secrecy, it's protection. She stood up for what mattered most to her. Not just her image. But her soul. Her story. Her sacred spaces. Own any images or video clips shown. They are used under fair use for commentary, research, and transformative purposes. All respect goes to the individuals featured. If any content needs to be credited or removed, please contact us directly.